I hold a lot of love in my heart. Love for animals, love for people, and love for all my close ones. This is why I take many strong stances when it comes to current issues. In that regard, I guess I've always been an activist since I was a child, when I protested the school filling in the pond to make a new playground. The other kids obviously didn't like me much after that, but I grew up being taught about the many stages of an animal's life there. To fill it in for a few monkey bars and some swings was like murder to me. With this new age of the internet, it's very easy to be an activist from the comforts of your own home. Just type your name on a petition, occasionally check the results, and claim that was because of you. I hate this keyboard warrior mentality. So many real life issues are glazed over, and real effective ideas are being phased out because it involves leaving the house. Behind a screen, it's much easier to see the world in a bright light, but that light is a facade. When you go out and see the real workings of the world, it's on the nose how broken society is. This is why I took to the streets a lot, still trying to keep the old way alive. I would protest animal shelters that were simply just putting animals down rather than helping them, with no regard of rehabilitation. I picketed for the denial of cameras that were being put practically on every street corner. People have a right to privacy. I was trying to make a difference. The problem is, I live in a small town, where the local folk simply don't want the trouble, so they lie down and accept everything that happens, no matter how bad it is for them in the long run. Due to my lack of support, I was often scoffed at, or I would be ignored while these sleazebags went to do their work of making life for everyone worse. You need a thick skin to do this sort of stuff, but after a while of no wins and many losses, it starts to get to you. This blog that I've kept up has been a great reprise. Though no one local seemed to frequent it, a few enthusiasts leave uplifting comments which helped me push through. I'm sad that I can't keep this up anymore. It started as a comment out of the blue. It was on a post of one of my rants. I was frustrated how easy it was to slide me under the rug, and how, because I was alone, I was easily ignored. The comment simply read, "Never act like a victim, and you will never be one." This hit me hard. At first, I was annoyed that they told me I was acting like a victim. But then I started tracing back through my blog, and I realized something. They were right. Each of my posts were often me simply lamenting that I was powerless, that what I was doing couldn't work, how I needed others or my ideas couldn't work, that I had boundaries since I was still fearful of breaking the law. But in the end, these were all excuses, not reasons. Well, the epiphany didn't simply fade away. I took heed and acted on it immediately. I grabbed some spray cans I had from an old DIY project years ago, put a scarf over my face, and took to the streets. I climbed the pole of various high-traffic viewing security cameras and gave the face a once-over in paint. With adrenaline pumping through me, I sped home and immediately blogged about it. My blog was done anonymously, so I didn't fear being caught from there. Lo and behold, the feedback was much different. People weren't just giving me pity, they were praising me. This was it. This was what I wanted to do. I was finally realizing my vision. I just had to be smart about it. It was dangerous. However, vandalism was my new way of action. Rather than my message be walked by without a second glance, I gave people no choice but to look. Large messages of murder sprayed on the front of the animal shelter. I covered more cameras. I even managed to sneakily spray pigs on the police station. However, there's only so much you can do with a spray can, and in the end, it was nothing a simple power wash couldn't erase. Soon, I was back to square one. When I wrote about it though, I never lamented. Rather, I mainly focused on growing. This is when I received another comment from the same person as before. I never took notice of them before, simply thinking he was a fan from somewhere else in the world. But this comment made me take notice of them. Their username was as1, and their profile picture was some cryptic looking symbol. It looked like it could be the logo of a metal band. The comment simply said that I should meet them, nothing else. It seemed they were withholding information and only replied when I left a scrap email address they could contact me on. The email was even more bare, only saying to meet at a local park on the edge of town at midnight the next day. It seemed a bit ominous, but understandable if they were as scared of leaking personal information as I was. On the day, I packed a small pack of items, something to conceal my face, some spray cans, and pocketed some mace, just in case. When I arrived, I was alone. I stood there, looking around nervously, checking my phone every often at the time. I still remember how slow everything felt. 5 minutes till midnight. Nothing. An eternity later, 4 minutes till midnight. Nothing. This cycled until my phone hit midnight, dead. As soon as I looked up, the glare of my screen illuminated a figure in front of me. Startled, I flinched, and it was when I put my phone down I saw the rest. A group of people, seemingly out of nowhere, all wearing very creepy masks. The masks looked like they were made from the material you'd picture a scarecrow made out of. They held a permanent smile and dark smudged eyes. I was at a loss for words. "Don't be scared," I heard one of them say. A nice sentiment, though at first it did fall on deaf ears. Eventually they pulled off their masks, and I started to relax a little. They looked like a family. There was a middle-aged guy with dark hair and eyes, a woman who looked about the same age as him, and very motherly. I even saw a girl who looked in her teens. At the realization that this was probably a small group inspired by the popular hacktivists Anonymous with their Guy Fawkes masks, I began to ease up. They were all quiet, except for the middle-aged guy, who seemed to be calling the shots. He talked to me about how they've been tracking my efforts and feel I was very like-minded with their group and their ideals. This got me excited. I always felt that my solitude was my weakness, and this was my chance to be a part of something bigger. The possibilities raced through my mind, and soon I was lost in my fantasies. He explained to me that tonight was a night of testing, that I was new blood to be ushered in. I missed a lot of details, already daydreaming about what I'd do now that I had some people to back me up. When I came to, I was being led into an old pickup truck and was instructed to get in the back. The group piled in with me, and off we went. After a few minutes of driving, we pulled alongside the road on an old path in the thick of the woods. I didn't recognize the location, only that it was a far offshoot of the park. I was confused at this point. However, the group seemed to know what they were doing, so I didn't question it. While looking around, I spotted an old man jogging with some high vis on. When the others saw him, they all sprang into action. 2 pulled on their masks and ran after him. I watched, but was soon shoved, the guy from before shouting at me to go with them. In the confusion, I found myself running after them, catching up, and soon in front of this old man. The 2 grabbed him and tried to drag him away. I just froze, bewildered at what was going on. Through sheer force from struggling, the old man managed to free himself from one of the men and was threatening to escape the other Out of pure reaction, I ran over and grabbed him, giving the loosened guard time to get a grip again. The pickup truck soon pulled up, and the others threw him in the back. After we all piled in and the vehicle started rolling, the guy from before spoke to me again. I remember this part clearly as I was now intent on paying attention, wanting to find out what was going on. He told me he was proud of me, and that I had good focus on what was important. A little flattered, I didn't bother chase up the details. I trusted that this was a night where I was finally going to make a difference. Soon, the pickup pulled into a rundown driveway which held a small storage unit. The group filed in, along with the two who escorted the old man with us. In the unit were a few rows of fold-out chairs already set up, and a single chair facing the rest. Everyone took a seat. To the old man's protests, he was held down in a single chair, now center stage. I was led to the front, an empty chair waiting for me on the front row. I sat down, and soon the leader started talking. What he gave was a compelling speech, a wonderful sermon about family, how being as one is the strength of the group, how, through their selective process, a new member may join the fold. When he moved on to talking about the old man, he talked in depth about how he was a corrupt politician. He was voted for to be a fighter for the people. However, once he rose to power, he became like the rest. He also led the budget cuts to the animal protection policies of the town, and that the high rise in animal euthanization was his doing. As he told that part, he was looking at me, almost as if hinting that they were doing this part for me. I smiled at the sentiment. The speech carried on with him, explaining that we were to use this politician as an example, to send a message to others who follow his corrupt footsteps, that this group creates chaos to make people aware of what's truly important. But the last few lines of the speech made my wry smile twist into a look of confusion. You cannot take what you cannot give. This turned my head. The speech ended with, to usher in new blood, we must spill old blood. With that, everyone stood up. I hastily stood too, trying not to stand out. I was led forward, in front of this now sobbing old man. I turned to look. All eyes were on me. I wished they were human eyes, as they all then had their masks back on. The grim smiles plastered across their masks, conveying a stark contrast to the situation I was now in. I turned to face the preacher, who held an item in each hand. One hand was holding a mask, seemingly new compared to the more worn and stained ones that stared at me. In the other was something that made my heart sink. It was a knife. I stared, not wanting to move to prolong any bad events that happen. However, as time passed, the group grew more restless, and a look of anger started to form on the guy's face. I opened my mouth, but couldn't find any words, and it was in that deer-in-headlights look that he snapped the items away from me. I feared he was going to attack me on sight, so I reflexively pulled out my mace and sprayed it around in front of me, closing my eyes. When I opened them, I saw he was in fact about to attack me, but was temporarily repelled. I turned to see the group ready to join in, so I quickly burst through the door and ran. I ran at a speed I never knew I could run, and soon I could hear footsteps of the others on my tail. A few seconds later, I also heard the roar of the pickup's engine rearing up. I ran down the road, a feeling of futility setting in, knowing soon a behemoth of a vehicle would join the chase. Soon I was at a fork in the road, I was met with a very important decision. Left or right? I looked both ways, each a dark expanse into tree-lined dirt roads. As I heard the throttle of the pickup being punched, I instead jumped into the bushes right in front of me. There, I stayed as still as I could, suppressing my urges to whimper and gasp. Around me, I could hear the clatter of footsteps stop, soon followed by the pulling up of the pickup. They were right next to me. I could feel my heart racing. My face was heating up under the stress, and I was getting desperate for air since I was now holding my breath. After a few seconds, I heard the leader tell the group on foot to go left and the truck to go right. Eventually, the footsteps left, and the rumbles of the engine faded. I gasped for air. There I stayed for about half an hour, before knowing I had to leave before they double-backed on themselves. I made my way home through a lot of indirect routes, far away from any paths or roads. I can't go to the police. I was now an accessory to a crime, as I helped kidnap a very important person. Also, who knows how deep their ties run? I can't go to family or friends either, as that will only put them in danger. My only hope is to go into hiding, to leave this town and go off-grid. I now leave this last blog post to explain everything that's happened to me, and to say goodbye. This is another story inspired by Season 1 and 2 of Crypt TV's Sunny Family Cult. It's a wonderfully dark live-action series so rich I could write many more stories about it. Make sure to give them a watch, and subscribe to catch Season 3 when it's released.